Hello and welcome back to my channel. I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about this week and I was like, kind of need a break from doing some investigation and research and all of that just because I've got a lot going on over the next couple weeks, and so I just wanted to talk about a topic that maybe was a little bit easier for me and a little bit lighter. So here we are. It occurred to me that I had never actually done a video about the things that I love about Calabria. I'm not sure how that happened. I've really given Calabria its flowers over the last couple years, so I'm not sure how that got away from me. But anyway, here we are. It's been a few months since I've been to Calabria. It's at the time of recording this, it's February 2025, and the last time I was there was in September 2024. So not so long ago, but it's been a little while, and I'm feeling a bit nostalgic about Calabria. I miss it. I miss my people. I miss all the things. So I figured that I would do a video today just kind of talking about that, talking about the things that I love about Calabria, and we'll go from there. Just based on what I can gather from my statistics, I think a lot of the people that are subscribed to this channel are people of Italian descent, but I think also a lot of you are people of Calabrian descent. So I'm sure that you can understand my love for the place, especially if you've ever been there. There are so many things that I love about Calabria and a few things that I don't. We'll get there. But as for the things that I love, that's what I'll be sharing in today's video. Now, first, it's beautiful. Calabria is so nice, right? Like, Calabria is so beautiful, and I just love how diverse the terrain is, right? We have everything from rolling mountains and olive groves and beautiful forests and this sort of thing to the coastlines. Obviously, I think the coastlines are what Calabria is most famous for, but we also just have vast open countrysides. And honestly, one of my favorite things to do in Calabria is to just take a drive and look at the scenery. It's such a beautiful place. I've visited many places in Italy, and maybe I'm a bit biased, but honestly, I don't think that there's anywhere that's quite as beautiful as Calabria. They can give us all the hate that they want, but honestly, Calabria is so calming. There's an energy about the nature in Calabria. I don't know how to explain it. If you've been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's just nothing like it there. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased, but I just think it's gorgeous. It's like anywhere that you take a picture from, it's scenic, it's aesthetic. Like, everything is just so nice there, and it's one of my favorite things about Calabria. Now, hello, the food. Again, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but when I first moved to Calabria, I worked in tourism, and a lot of the tourists that we had come down for the summer were actually Italian tourists. They weren't people from outside of the country. And even Northern Italians that, they give us a lot of hell and they kind of tease us a lot, but even they were like, in Calabria si mangia bene. So, what can I say? Calabria has good food. I don't care what you say. And I'm going to attribute this to the fact that we just have great produce. We have really rich soil in Calabria. I think also the water quality is good. I don't have anything to back that up. But all that to say, the produce is so fresh. If you've ever bought some vegetables in Calabria, you know what I'm talking about. It's like even the most basic things that you make, the most simple dishes, just taste so good. Calabrian dishes are often very simple. They have very simple ingredients. And there's this whole idea of like la cucina povera and all of that. Everything's just simple ingredients, simple, tasty, just really good, fresh food. And I think that that's what makes the difference. We have some of the best produce in Italy. And as a matter of fact, I know that Calabria is one of the largest producers of produce throughout the country. Calabria is second only to Sicily in terms of how many organic farmers that we have. So that means that our fruits and produce are extraordinarily fresh, and you can really taste the difference. I think food overall in Italy is really good. When I've gone to the north, I go to a grocery store up there. The quality is always very good, okay? Especially if we compare it to the U.S. I'm not gonna, take shots over here, but I will say that there's nothing like the fruits and vegetables coming out of Italy. Multiply that exponentially when you go to Calabria or anywhere in the south that's a bit more rural. there's a huge difference. I don't know what to tell you if you haven't experienced it before. It's just your body feels good. No matter what you eat, your body just feels light. It feels energized. There's something about it. Calabrian food is also known to be quite spicy, which I love. I have quite a high tolerance for spice. So if you're somebody that doesn't like spicy food, definitely be careful if you ever go there because some things have even pushed my threshold. And that's saying a lot because like I said, I'm quite tolerant to spicy food. But, you know, the red peppers and even some of the green peppers, there are some that are sweet and spicy. And you have to be kind of careful because they look really similar. If you work in agriculture, then you would probably be able to tell the difference. But just watch it a little bit because it can be quite spicy. But if you like spicy food, Calabrian food is it. Now, definitely one of my favorite things in Calabria is something called a Sagre. Now, if you don't know what a Sagre is, this is basically a local festival or celebration that they do. Usually it's about some kind of food, and they have a Sagre for just about anything you can imagine in Calabria, especially during the summertime. There's something that happened year round, but especially during the summertime, it seems like there's a Sagre for everything. It's like Sagre del peperoncino, Sagre della cipolla, Sagre dell'olio, like anything you can imagine, they've got it. And these are really cool celebrations. These are one of my favorite things because it's a time for people to just come together. You can try lots of different food that incorporate these ingredients. And people dance, they sing, obviously they drink, like it's just a lot of fun and you can meet lots of people. It's a great time to just kind of let loose and enjoy yourself. I've been to many of them. Usually they also play some kind of folk music and dance like tarantella and so on. And yes, that is me in really bad video quality dancing tarantella a couple years ago. I think that was the Sagre dell'Olio in Francica. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. It was a couple years ago. But anyway, so much fun and a great opportunity to meet lots of different people. Given that this is a language channel, of course, I was going to mention how linguistically diverse Calabria is. Calabria, the Calabrian dialect, and I've made a video about this. I'm always going to plug that video because honestly, I just love talking about the languages of Calabria. It's so fascinating to me that it can be vastly different just from town to town. I mean, the language that they speak in Francica can be totally different from what they speak in Rosarno, right? Like, they understand each other, but it's different. There are different words, a kind of different cadence and that sort of thing. I mean, when I went to go get my paperwork in Verduicaro, which is up in Cosenza, it's quite a bit, it's not so far, it's about 2 hours away from Vibo, where I normally live. The guy that came with me is a friend of mine. He's Calabrian, and he had to speak Italian when we went up to Verduicaro because they couldn't understand each other's dialects. So all that to say, there's so much linguistic diversity there, and as a linguist and someone that's fascinated by language, I find it so interesting. Every time I'm there, just listening to it, listening to the different words. Every time I go, I learn something new. There's just something about when I hear the Calabrian dialects, especially if I hear the Vibonese dialect, because that's the one that I'm most familiar with. If I'm in the airport in Rome or something and I'm on my way back down to Calabria, I'm just like, I'm home. Even though I don't speak it, but it's just something that's become so much part of my regular life there. I will mention the history and the quaint villages that are there. I mean, a lot of the villages are quite old, and you can really see the influence from the Greek period, and certainly when they had royals and noble families and all of that. There's essentially a castle in all of the main towns. It's so interesting to me. I mean, I'm not somebody that really loves royal history, and like, I'm not really interested in that kind of stuff necessarily, but as a person that comes from the United States, it's really weird to see castles. I mean, it almost feels like fantasy to me. I don't know, just because it's not something that I grew up around. So when I see it in person in Calabria, and I see it quite frequently, right, because there are castles kind of everywhere, it's really weird to look at, and it's fascinating. It's really beautiful. I'm much more interested in how the history has affected the languages. That's kind of the angle that I take for my research. But regardless, the history of Calabria and the history of each respective province within Calabria is really, really fascinating, and something that, if you have the time, it's worth getting into. I love that Calabria is less touristy than other parts of Italy. I've been to lots of other parts of Italy, some of which are not so touristy, and then others like Milan and Rome that are just flooded with tourists. Calabria is very different in this way because Calabria almost feels very untouched. Even if you go to the parts of Calabria that are a bit more touristy, like Tropea, for example, it just feels different. I don't know. It's like Calabrians are so hard-headed in a way. I know that that's the stereotype. We'll get into this. But it's true. I mean, I just don't think that Calabrians are that changeable. And you can really see that when you go there. Apart from the fact that I think international tourism to Calabria is still a little bit new if we compare it to international tourism in other parts of Italy. Historically, and even when I first started going to Calabria, this was something that was much more common for northern Italians. Like northern Italians would go down, or people of Calabrian descent or from Calabria that live and work in the north, they would come back down with their families during the summertime. So the majority of the tourism was still Italian people. So it's just untouched in a way that I think some other parts of Italy are. And you can really feel the difference. In some ways, I even feel a bit conflicted sharing so much about Calabria just because it's like I'm very selfish and possessive of Calabria in a way. I want it to stay the same. I don't want it to change. And I feel like the more people that go there, especially international folks, if they go there, they're going to want to change things. And it's like, even the parts of Calabria that I don't really like necessarily, I find it somewhat endearing. I mean, there are some things that I don't find endearing, but a lot of it I do find it really endearing, and I love the change of pace when I go there. Either way, like I said, Calabrians are so stubborn in a way, so I don't think it's going to be changing anytime soon, and I hope it doesn't change because Calabria is great just as it is. And that leads me to the people. I love Calabrian people. I don't care what anybody says. I love them. They are so warm and generous and kind, really genuine and authentic. I think it's quite rare that you meet people that are genuine and authentic the way that I think a lot of Calabrians are. What I love about Calabrians is that you always know what you're getting. Even if they're mad at you, like, it's very obvious that they're mad at you. Okay, there's no guessing. And I love that. I love the clarity, and I just love the way that Calabrians are able to be clear with their intentions. There's a particular mentality that if you're not from there or you haven't spent a lot of time there, you might not fully understand. And I can understand that that might be kind of frustrating for some people. But if you get it and you've been there, or your family's Calabrian and you know what I'm talking about, there's just something about the people. Like, they're fiercely authentic. As I mentioned before, Calabrians are known for being testa dura. And I will agree with that. It is a stereotype, but I will say that, and Calabrians actually embody this, okay? Like, they will even joke about being stubborn and that sort of thing. So it's like, it's definitely part of the mentality and part of the culture. A Calabrian person is not worried about being a little disagreeable. And that's something that I actually really appreciate, because I think that sometimes people kind of lean into people pleasing a lot. I don't like that. I love that Calabrians are not afraid to just say, no, that's not going to work, or I don't like that, or I don't want to do that. I love the clarity. I always tell new people that go there, especially Argentinians, because I've been to Argentina and I know how I've spent a lot of time with Argentinians, okay? They have a much higher context culture than Italians do in general, but especially Calabrians. And I think it's kind of hard for Argentinians to adjust to being in Calabria, because Italians are very direct, or at least Calabrians are really direct. And Argentinians are a little bit more, believe it or not, they're a little bit more roundabout the way that they explain things or the way that they want things done. And so something that I've heard from Argentinians that have gone there is that Calabrians are rude. And I'm like, really? Calabrians are rude? But now I understand why, because Calabrians will just say it very directly. They're very, very direct. And they don't leave much room for guessing. Something else, in Calabria, you need to have quite good boundaries, okay? Because a Calabrian will push, okay? Like, they'll push you to a certain extent, and actually they like when you push back, and they like that you will enforce your boundaries. So if you're not somebody that's really good at that, then you might get yourself in a little bit of trouble, or you might overcommit yourself to things that you otherwise don't want to do. But Calabrians will respect you for it, and that's something I really like. They can be quite boundaried, and also they appreciate people that are quite boundaried. They just want authenticity and they want clarity. As long as you're clear with your intentions, they're good with that. What I love about Calabrians is they're very helpful. They'll do anything to help, whether that's fixing your blown out electricity or taking your car to the mechanic or picking you up from the airport or taking you to the doctor. I mean, they're just so helpful. You can always ask your neighbors for anything. And that's something that I do really regularly. If I need anything, like let's say that I need a new propane tank installed, I'll just ask my neighbor, like, hey, can you help me install my new propane tank? They're so helpful with anything. That said, Calabrians don't like selfish behavior. Because they're so generous and they're so kind and warm in that way, when that energy is not reciprocated, they can feel quite offended. And I mean, who wouldn't be, right? Like they give a lot and they also sort of expect to receive. We have to understand something about Calabrian culture. Calabrian culture is actually very collective. What they give, they sort of expect to receive back. It's not a blatant expectation necessarily, but if they feel like they're giving and giving and giving and that you're not reciprocating that, that's when people tend to meet the spicy Calabrians that they've heard so much about. When a Calabrian person cares for you, it's to a fault, okay? They will defend you. They will do whatever they can within their power to make sure that you're good. There's even an expression, una mano si lava l'altra e tutte due lavano la faccia, which basically directly translates to one hand washes the other and both of them wash the face, okay? It's kind of like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours sort of thing. And that's really the embodiment of Calabrian culture. If you made it all the way through the video, thank you so much for letting me be a little bit mushy about Calabria. I will gas this place up for as long as I can. I love it there, and I do love sharing about the culture. I love sharing about all of the good, beautiful things that you can find there. If you have any of your own stories about Calabria or your Calabrian family members or Calabrian culture, your experiences visiting there as a tourist, whatever, please do share it in the comments. I love reading your comments, especially when it comes to this topic. Like, share, subscribe. It really helps out the channel and I appreciate it so much. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video.